Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with Exemplify Health Center, the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Happy Monday evening to you. I hope you guys had a great start to your week. I know that it is so cold, so cold here in Illinois. And in fact, it's so cold, I even saw a politician have hands in their own pockets. Terrible joke. I apologize. So, guys, if you are watching right now, say hello. We're streaming right now live to Facebook, to at Dr. Nathan Thompson, and also to Exemplify Health Center, the Wellness Way, Yorkville. Also to YouTube at Dr. Nathan Thompson. Also to the awesome Rumble platform as well. So, if you are watching live, say hello, and also let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching the replay, type in the comments "replay" if you'd be so nice to do that. I always love to see where people are watching from, and I also love to see, hey, how many people actually watch our live broadcast. So if you're doing that, if you could do that, I would sincerely appreciate that. I'm going to go over with you a pretty controversial topic that's probably going to ruffle some feathers. I'm here for it. But the question is what exercises should you avoid after 50? Are there any? Are there things that you should necessarily avoid? Are you just too old to exercise in general? Those are some of the things I'm gonna answer during this live broadcast over the next several minutes. Before we do that, I'm gonna ask you to do something. If you are watching right now, I want you to turn off this broadcast if you have no desire to grow. Please turn it off right now, okay? And don't come back. Or you don't like your belief system being challenged. And the reason why is because every time that I do a live video is to inspire you to be able to grow. But I'm also going to challenge what some of the norms are because there's just a lot of BS that's out there right now. And I want you to know is yes, we have the knowledge and the experience to dispel some of these crazy, crazy arguments that not only actually sometimes medical doctors say, but also some of the limiting beliefs that you might have in your own mind as well. So before we get into what exercises should you avoid after 50, I want to get into a couple of things. Last week we had our inflammation talk. It was awesome. We're going to be doing another in-person inflammation talk Tuesday, January 30th, which is almost the end of January, at 6:00 p.m. This is an in-person event. Who is this for? Excuse me. This is for people who live in the Chicagoland area who want to work with our office exclusively. Okay. So if you are from the Chicagoland area, please make sure you go to the top of the page. If you're watching on Facebook, you'll probably see also the link on YouTube as well, and just follow how to work with us in person. So our event on Tuesday, January 30th is an in-person event. Just so you guys know that, I know that we have a lot of people from different parts of the country, different countries. They register for an in-person event. I'm like, no, you just need to do the second thing, which is watch the webinar. So if you are from the continuous 48 states, which doesn't include Hawaii, doesn't include Alaska. But if you were in the contiguous 48 states and you want to work with our office remotely, then what I want you to do is I want you to watch the webinar. You'll see a link to be able to watch that webinar. So register for the webinar. Make sure that you register for a time that you can make it. You can watch it on demand, also on every Tuesday and Saturday. At certain times, you'll also be able to watch it. And if you watch it, you're going to also see a link at the end in which you can schedule a remote consult with me. And I'll look at some of your labs. And I'll also recommend, hey, if we need further testing, here's what we're going to do. And here's what I want you to start taking. The purpose is to get you started on the right track. And the purpose ultimately is for you to stop being manipulated and for you to be restored. And there's a big difference between the two. And it's also to give you hope. So if you are from the United States, the contiguous 48 states, not from the Chicagoland area, go ahead and register for that webinar. Follow the links for that, and you'll be able to watch the inflammation webinar. I promise you it will be worth your time. And then you'll see a link to be able to schedule a one-on-one in-person consult over the phone with me personally, and I'll get you started in the right direction. Just the other day, I probably had 15 messages from Instagram of people asking me sending me their labs and stuff, and I can't look at all of those different things. So I apologize if I don't get back to you right away. I'm doing my best, I promise. However, here's the other thing. We're halfway through, thank God, the meats and veggie only challenge, which kicked off on January 1st. No processed food, meats and veggies only. Yes, it's that simple. And if you go to Facebook, you go to Instagram, you'll see some of the slides at the top that will give you a good idea of exactly what's going on. I tell people this, I don't want you to go alone in this. It's very hard, very difficult to go not eat any kind of processed food or sugar for 1 month. I know I did a live on that last week for a whole entire month. And so we want to make sure you guys are set up for resources. If you go over to Facebook and you just type in the No Sugar Challenge group, you'll see there's a special group there with about 25,000 people in it who are all doing this with you. And it's a lot easier to follow through if you know that 25,000 people are cheering for your success than doing it alone. And so if you go over there on Facebook, just type in No Sugar Challenge group. You'll see a wonderful group on there. It's free to join. You'll get tons of awesome resources as well. So make sure that you do that. The No Sugar Challenge is very, very similar, almost identical to what we would call meats and veggies only. And in fact, when I know that people they need to get off of sweet, they need to get off of sugar and processed foods, here's what I tell them. What I want you to do is I want you to think of meats and veggies only and try to eat foods that have a glycemic index of under 55. And you'll notice that you'll start, it's not no carbs. So if you start doing that, you'll start to see that you'll get your refined carbs kind of out of your diet, but you also won't flood your body with so much doggone sugar all the time. And you'll start stripping it away from your muscles, from your liver and things like that, which is one of the reasons why a lot of people can lose a lot of weight when they do No Sugar Challenge, because they're just getting rid of a lot of excess calories and a lot of excess sugar from their diet. So the other thing that I'm going to tell you is, yes, we are committed. I'm going to have some help on this coming up either in March or April. I'm going to guess it's probably going to be March, but we have a mobility challenge, which has a lot to do with what we're talking about tonight. That's our special t-shirt that we have in men's and women's sizes. It says, "You don't know squat." All right. But the other thing I talked about this last week is mobility is innate. We're given tremendous mobility. And if we don't have it, it's not because we're old. It's because we've just lost that innate gift. So look at a 1-year-old, look at an 18-month-old, and you know that they'll have a perfect squat. They've never been coached on it. It's an innate movement in which kids innately learn how to do this. And the only reason why they can't anymore is because we've gone away from doing it, in which if you don't use it, you will lose it. So we want to help you get that back, but that may take a little bit of time. So I want to get into the meat and potatoes of what we're going over tonight. Again, if you are watching, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. What exercises should you avoid after 50, Dr. Nate? The first thing that I'm going to tell you is this has nothing to do with your age. The other thing that I want to tell you too is exercise, consider it a tool, okay? Now, I know a lot of people who think that exercise is the end all be all. Oh, if I could just exercise, all my problems would go away. That's not true. I've seen a lot of people run into problems because they, in fact, are exercising. Exercise, though, is just a tool. That's why you may see a lot of fitness influencers, a lot of fitness trainers are always talking about exercise. And yes, I talk a lot about exercise, but I also view it as a tool, meaning it's just something to help you get from point A to point B to accomplish something that you need in your everyday life. But it's not going to take all your problems away. It's not. I've run into so many people say, if I could just exercise, I could lose weight. That's not necessarily true. If I could just exercise, all my stress would go away. That's not necessarily true. If I could just exercise, my hormones would get better. That's not necessarily true. However, one of the things that is true clear across the board is that life demands that you have proper movement and flexibility. Meaning if you were lacking the flexibility to get into a normal squat position, if you're lacking the flexibility to be able to pick something off the ground, life doesn't care. Life demands that. And as soon as you can't stop doing, you can't get off of the toilet, you can't get off of the living room couch or the living room chair, then it's time to go into the nursing home, because I haven't met anyone that says, let's help you get that back. So exercise, guys, is just a tool. Biggest thing that I want to tell you is I don't want to restrict you. I want to empower you. And here's the biggest thing. Remember I said, turn this off if you don't want to be challenged. You're not old. Quit using it as an excuse. You're deconditioned, And you also have the only thing that's old are probably the injuries that are unresolved. You have I've heard this so many times that say, "Oh, I'm old, I can't do that." Well, I'm almost 50 and there's not one thing that I can't do. I can still do a lot more than I could at 33, 32, 30 years of age. So quit saying that you're old. You're out of shape and you have a lot of old injuries that you haven't been able to work through. So here is a sign that I know that you will not change. And I used to believe people when I owned gyms because I'd have people come into the gym and they're like, "Oh, I really need to get into the gym." I was like, "Oh, they're coming." And they never came. It was they were lying to themselves. And honestly, they were lying to me. They just didn't realize it. And one of the things that I knew, is this person going to change? Is that instead of saying, I need to, or I need to move better, I need to get in the gym, instead they say, instead of need to, I want to. So if you can turn your I need tos into I want tos, then you're going to be in a whole better place. Because just remember this, people in general do what they want to do, and they rarely do what they need to do. Doing what you need to do is not fun. Is fitness fun for me? Absolutely. I make it fun. And I actually get to the point where I want to go to the gym. I'm not saying I need to. Now, if it was I need to, I would do a lot better job only because of maturity. Maturity says, I don't really want to do it, but I need to do it anyway. That's like taking out the garbage. That's like, you know, but if you can get yourself to a place to, I want to, then it's going to be a whole heck of a lot easier. And I know that it's much more likely that you're going to actually change. So here is the article that I want to go over with you. This comes from WebMD, and it was written October 8th, 2023. So it's just a couple of months old. And it was medically reviewed by Dr. Poonam Sachdev. Okay. Medically reviewed, meaning she looked at this and she said, it's good information and it's good for me. And it's also good for medicine in general. Now, here's what I want you to realize is that medical doctors in general get very little, if any kind of instruction on exercise. Because even when I was in chiropractic school, I got very little instruction on exercise. I had to learn this stuff on my own. And on top of that, I had to use myself and use hundreds of people as kind of a template as far as to help them to get results when it came to their flexibility, when it comes to their exercise. So Dr. Sachdev, I just want you to know that her specialty is wound care. It's not exercise. So she's wound care and obesity medicine specialist, whatever that means. Okay. That just means dumping a bunch of medications into people and trying to watch them to lose weight. And I've talked about that in a lot of lives, talking about semaglutide, Mounjaro, things like that, and how I believe that it's really doing a disservice to the community in general because of what it does to people's insulin levels and what it also does to what it does when you're talking about weight loss versus fat loss. There's a big difference between the two. So you probably know my opinion on most of these exercises, but I'm going to go through what she actually said as well. So here's what's the introduction is this: as you age, your body changes. Does your body change? Of course it does. But no one knows how quickly it's supposed to age. If you follow me all the way to the end, I have a special gift for you. And if you also follow me, I'm going to show you someone 70 years of age doing wonderful things with better squat form than most people at 10 or 15 years of age. Some of the things you used to be able to do aren't as easy anymore because you're getting older. Apparently, you're getting 50 years of age. It's normal to have changes in flexibility, muscular strength, bone density, and the time it takes to recover from injuries. I love that how they just say it's normal. It's common, yes. Is it ever normal? No, not necessarily. So common is now the new normal. And so people are just believing lie after lie. And because of that, they never work on getting better. So what are the exercises that the good doctor says that you should be avoiding? It's this. So what exercises should you avoid after 50? The leg extension machine. You should avoid the leg extension machine. So this exercise machine involves sitting while extending your legs up and out with resistance. You see a picture. I have a picture there on the right-hand side. Up and out with resistance in front of your ankles. This helps strengthen your thigh muscles or your quadriceps were on the front as they come into the knee. But for people over 50, this puts unnecessary stress on your kneecap area, causing a lot of wear and tear. So it's almost like just because you turn 50, now it becomes a bad exercise. Now, here's full disclosure. I think it's a bad exercise regardless. And the reason why is if you could do a lot of weight doing this, and if it doesn't translate into your ability to be able to squat heavy loads, then it really isn't doing much. The only thing that it's doing is aesthetically just increasing muscle mass. Okay. So what's the verdict as far as you should do it? It's, I would say, generally true. I'm not going to give you it's 100% false. Generally, it's true. You know, an exercise that requires knee extension or straightening your leg, it begins with an S and ends in quat. It's called a squat. Okay. So squatting, is it bad for your knees that people say? No, it's not. It's not. Um, But it hurts when I squat. Well, the reason why it hurts when you squat is because you don't have the right range of motion. You don't have the right flexibility to be able to do a squat correctly. I would never tell a person to squat if they couldn't do it correctly. I'm going to show you kind of how you have to progress into doing that. Second exercise is a back extension on a Roman chair. This is not actually a Roman chair, but this person is demonstrating a back extension, and what they're doing is this is on what's known as a glute ham developer, which is a piece of equipment that's very similar. And it's a great piece of equipment. The reason why is you can do back extensions, you can do hip extensions, you can also do glute ham developer sit-ups, which are very tough. And they'll probably say you should never ever do those. And I've done those as well. If you want to make your abs sore, do GHD sit-ups. You do enough of them, your abs will be screaming because it stretches them out so much. So this involves strengthening your back by bending forward from your waist with your thigh supported, using your lower back muscles to pull you up. This can be a problem if you have lower back instability or narrowing of the spinal cord called stenosis. It's not narrowing of the spinal cord, it's narrowing of the spinal canal. That's called spinal stenosis, okay? So here's my take on back extensions. Here's my take on it. It's generally false, okay? Generally false. Now, if you really want to know if you should be doing this or not, you should get an x-ray. So get an x-ray and an AP and lateral lumbar x-ray. And then probably what I would do too is do lateral flexion views. So you're going to bend to the left, bend to the right to see if things are moving the way that they are supposed to. I will tell you this from personal experience is that doing back extension is very good for the back. Most people, they don't get hurt when it comes to extending their back. They get hurt when it comes to flexing their back. They're very flexion intolerant. I know that anytime that I was going to squat, anytime that I'm going to pick something heavy off the ground, I will do probably 20, 25, 30 back extensions in order to get my disc hydrated, in order to start to warm up the tissues into the lower part of the back so that I don't injure it. And so I use this as a tool to help me move better. And movement is almost how you lubricate and how you get the joints warmed up the way that they're supposed to. So that's why is it bad after 50? That's the dumbest thing in the world. No, just because you're 50 years of age doesn't mean that you should stop doing it. Here's a third thing: behind the neck pull downs or behind the neck pull ups. Behind the neck pull downs involve pulling a bar behind your back or behind your head in order to work out your back and your biceps. These exercises can put a lot of stress on the front of your shoulders, which could cause injuries. Now, I just asked my 16-year-old son, I'm like, do you believe that? He's like, no. I'm like, why don't you believe it? He's like, it's only can injure you when you have improper flexibility in your shoulders. So it's kind of like them saying, we already know you're going to have terrible shoulder flexibility, so just don't do it, rather than saying, here's the flexibility you need in order for you to be able to do it. So do I do behind the neck presses? Absolutely. I will do that only because I have proper shoulder flexibility. So what's the verdict? Generally false. Generally false. So how about this one? Plyometric exercises. You're going to see a form of plyometrics over here on this picture, and it's known as a box jump. Also known as jump training, this involves doing things like box jumps or depth jumps with explosive movement. They can be good for strength building, but they can be problematic if you don't do them correctly or if you don't have enough muscle strength. Actually, they can be a problem with anybody. And most of the time, you walk into like a CrossFit gym, and they're not going to have you do a box jump until, and they'll maybe start you off at 6 inches and working your way up to 12 to 18, maybe up to 24 inches, but only when you can do it safely. If you want to try to do jump training, just do it with less intensity. The key is to find a balance where you can challenge yourself, but also stay injury free. So, in about 3 years, I'm going to need to just stop doing any kind of box jumps as well. In fact, I just did box jumps for the first time in about 2 months. And I'll do box jumps actually tomorrow. Now, have I missed the box and scraped up my shin really bad? Yes. But it doesn't mean I'm going to avoid it because there's a possibility I'm going to be injured. But people say, don't do it because you might be injured. Those are the people who probably have never done anything worthwhile ever. Sorry, but that's just true. So I would rather get hurt by exercise than get hurt by being lazy and being immobile. There's a difference between the two. So what's the verdict on plyometric exercise? The verdict is false. Here's the thing, guys. When they're telling you don't do any kind of box jumps, most people have extremely weak calves and extremely weak feet. This is why they're wearing easy spirits that are super cushioned, and I need to wear these huge Nike Monarchs in order to cushion my feet. And the thing is that their feet are so deconditioned that they've never done anything in order to strengthen their feet, to strengthen their calves and Achilles tendon, which is why they need to work themselves up to a certain point. But they've been deconditioned for so long, which is why they get things like plantar fasciitis and things like that. The overhead press, which you see in the picture on the right, this shoulder exercise where you lift weights from a rack position over your head. A dumbbell press, which allows for freedom of motion, is a good example. Overhead presses can place a lot of stress across your shoulders and your rotator cuff muscles. Rotator cuff injuries are common in people over 50, so substituting this exercise for something different. Again, I hate that when they say a lot of people get rotator cuff issues, so just stop doing it anymore. By the way, this person doing that is showing terrible flexibility on this because he can't actually go into a rack position. You should be able to get yourself into a rack position. If you want to work on getting yourself into a rack position, then just do it. And eventually your tissues will adapt, and I'll show you why in just a second. But should you be doing overhead presses? What's the verdict? The verdict is false. You should be able to press things overhead. If you want good shoulder strength, if you also want good bone mass in your shoulders, remember this. One of the most common areas that a person will fracture their shoulder is at the neck of the humerus. How do they do it? They fall on an outstretched hand, and their humerus is the first bone to break. And the reason why is because they're not sufficiently stressing that bone, which can cause it to become weaker and fragile, especially if you have osteoporosis and things like that. So what's the verdict? The verdict is false. Does it cause rotator cuff injuries? The answer is no, it doesn't. You know what causes a rotator cuff injury? Moving your shoulder without your shoulder blade moving correctly. Because what happens is the shoulder will keep banging into the tissue, which is the rotator cuff that comes underneath the shoulder blade, and it will keep assaulting that tissue, which causes it to actually break down. That's why you need proper shoulder blade movement. I believe this is the second to last one, heavy weights. Lifting weights is a great way to build muscle strength. But when you're over 50, there's no reason to push yourself very hard. Just try using a slightly lighter weight so you can safely do 10 to 12 reps with it. Okay. Should you lift heavy after 50? The answer is yes. The reason why is if you're lifting heavy, you're sufficiently stressing something, which will allow your muscles to be able to sufficiently grow. We want you to get stronger as you get older, not more weak and more deconditioned. So what's the verdict? The verdict is false. Okay. Now here, this I believe is the last one. Sprinting. While boosting your workout intensity has a lot of benefits, Sprinting can put you at a greater risk for injury when you're over 50. The faster you go, the greater chance that you'll get injured. Okay. Guys, what do you think about sprinting? The verdict is false. Now, I'm gonna give you full disclosure. I have terribly pulled a hamstring by sprinting. And you know why I did? Because I hadn't opened myself up for a long period of time. I decided I'm just going to open it up. And I was about 36 years of age and my body wasn't ready for it. And it had nothing to do because I wasn't 50, had nothing to do with how old I was. It was the fact I hadn't done it for years. I want you to ask yourself this question. How many of you have actually sprinted? And if you haven't sprinted much over the last 10, 15, 20 years, then we wouldn't have you start it right away because you probably will hurt yourself. And the reason why is the tissues and the joints just aren't used to it. Okay. Aren't used to it. But it doesn't mean that you need to start taking easy, that you need to just sail away, just go away quietly into the night. You should be working towards getting that back. Okay. Now, here's what it comes to. It comes down to the fireman and carpenter principle. You guys have probably heard me talk about this. But guys, if your house is on fire, please don't call me. Please don't call a carpenter. Call the fire department. Why? Because they have the tools and they have the training to be able to put that fire out. You're not going to call a dentist. I don't care how nice a person they are. Yeah, but my dentist is really nice. That doesn't matter. That doesn't give that dentist the tools and the training to be able to put out that fire. Call the fire department. And they'll come. They might do a lot of collateral damage. They're going to get your pictures of your kids, your carpeting, your drywall. They're going to get it all wet. But if they put out the fire and they save the house, then they've done their job. Okay. Now, after you put out that fire, you need a carpenter in order to rebuild the house. What does a carpenter do? A carpenter comes in and rebuilds the house. The problem with healthcare today is that medicine is the fire department. And if you're having a heart attack or you're having a stroke, they do a really good job at putting the fire out, but they never get to the reason why it happened. And they never rebuild the body. Other than what they do is they say, we'll just keep putting the fire out. Here's just a bunch of medications with no exit strategy. But they never do anything in order to rebuild the body afterwards. Are we living longer than ever before? The answer is yes, probably. Why? Because we're really good at putting out fires. But the result is that we see people living longer. Now they're living longer, sicker. There's a big difference between the two. So what we need is we need a carpenter rather than to say you shouldn't do this anymore, to say, hey, here's how we can get back to doing that. Here's how we can get stronger as you get older, which is completely opposite of what they tell us to do. They say as you hit 40, life is over. There's nothing that you should do. And people act accordingly. Okay. So here's my encouragement to you. Stop asking the fire department about fitness and exercise. Because if you read that article and you believe it, you're immediately going to deteriorate and you're going to degenerate. So stop asking the fire department about fitness and exercise because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the training, they certainly don't have the tools. Why should you listen to me? I will tell you this, is I've achieved one of the highest levels of certification just in CrossFit, and I have hundreds of thousands of hours of watching athletes log their scores and watching them get stronger, better, and faster through some of the workouts that I've written, which is over 1,800 of them. So I've seen what's failed, I've seen what's worked, and I've seen what's too much exercise. I've seen what's not enough exercise too, not enough stimulus. And I've seen that actually firsthand. Please don't email me and ask me, can I have all of your training that you did, over 5 years? Because I have 5 years of workouts just sitting right now on my computer. Okay. I want to ask you guys a question. Okay. This is what I have learned firsthand, but even talking to patients as well, but even just looking at this article, is most of what happens in medicine, is it empowerment or is it disqualification? I'm going to answer that question for you. It's disqualification. Is that they're saying you're old, you're over 50, and you need to stop doing anything anymore because you won't be able to do it. Versus if someone came in and they said, I'm old, I can't do things, but I want to get back to doing them again. We will empower them and not disqualify them. There's so much disqualification that takes place in medicine. It's just really sad. And in fact, if you even look at over the last 4 years, they said this, you're weak, you have a weak immune system. You got to watch out for this, watch out for the boogeyman because it's coming to get you. And people realize nothing is further from the truth. Rather than teach them how to strengthen their immune system, rather than to empower them how to improve their immune system, what they did is they just disqualified and scared a whole heck of a lot of people, and it wasn't right. And the same thing happens when it comes to fitness. The same thing that happens all the time when it comes to exercise. Rather than to empower you, they disqualify you and they make you scared for you to improve when it comes to your health. Now, why do I know that you can get better? There's something known as the SAID principle. The SAID principle. It's a principle which means it's right 100% of the time. SAID stands for specific adaptation to impose demands. Specific adaptation to impose demands. And it's a principle, meaning this. If you place a demand on the body, it will adapt to that demand. That can be awesome. That can also be terrible. Meaning this, if I start lifting things, then my body will start to adapt. How does it adapt to it? My bones get stronger. My muscles get stronger. My brain, my neurology connects to those muscles more efficiently, which also makes me stronger. So it's always adapting to the demand that you are placing on it. But if I decide that I'm just going to sit on the couch after work and do nothing, my body also adapts to that as well. So it's always adapting to whatever demand that you are placing on it. If you're placing no demand on the body, it will adapt to that with muscle atrophy, loss of bone mass, loss of energy, and loss of mobility as well. How do you get your mobility back? Create a demand that makes your body have to adapt to it. Now, with any of these exercises, should you be able to do them? The answer is yes. And if you can't do them, then what you have to work on is work on the mechanics of you being able to do it. That means maybe working on your form, working on your flexibility to start getting that back. And then once you can start to perform that movement with consistency, that's when you add intensity. So let me give you an example. If you can't do a normal squat, I would never tell someone to do 500 squats in a workout, because the only thing that's going to set you up is to set you up for injury. Improperly doing it over and over again is just setting yourself up for injury. So the first thing you work on is the mechanics. Let's get you to do it correctly. Let's get you to do it correctly consistently. And once you can do it correctly consistently, now let's increase the intensity so that you're able to do it and achieve a metabolically growing result, which means more strength and then better output, better work output when it comes to that. So what exercises should I avoid? What exercise should I limit, Dr. Nate? I will say this: any movement that you don't have full range of motion in, but you should work to it. What else should you avoid or limit? Any movement you haven't achieved adaptation to. What I mean is this: if you can't do a pull-up and you get your first pull-up after 2 or 3 months, then I wouldn't tell you, hey, let's go ahead and do 100 pull-ups in a workout. So any movement because you haven't adapted to that. And this is why, guys, coaching is so important. This is why coaching is so important. Where are you going to get that at? You're going to get that in a CrossFit gym. This is why when I see people and they go to Anytime Fitness, they go to Lifetime Fitness, they go to, in our area, even Signature Fitness, when they go to what's the one called that costs like $4 a month? Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness, is that I rarely see them change and I rarely see them grow. And that's why coaching is so important. You want to grow, be accountable to a coach and pay for it. That's one of the most satisfying types of things. Now, you may have a lot of excuses, and I'm not a person that wants to accept or give a lot of excuses. Excuses are the tools of incompetence that are used to build monuments of nothingness. Let me ask you a question. Have you been using excuses all the time to improve on your incompetence, to build a giant monument of accomplishing nothing? Chances are you might have been that. Now, I have a saying in my office is that you'll either grow or you'll go. And we don't kick people out of our office, but we'll challenge them to a point where if they're not willing to grow, we'll challenge them so much that they'll walk away. And this is also true, is that you have to want to grow. And if you don't want to grow, then you'll probably go. And I'm fine if you don't follow me, anymore on Instagram. I'm fine if you don't follow me on Facebook or on YouTube or anything like that. I don't do this for followers. I do this to change the world. And I'm here to challenge you. If you're willing to be challenged, then I want you to take the next step. Here's the last thing I'm going to tell you. You can have reasons, you can have results, but you can't have both. So many people, when they have failure, they have, here's my reasons why I failed. And that's probably the reason why you failed. So when people say, oh, Dr. Nate, you don't understand, it's my knees. And I'm like, you can have reasons, you can have results, but it's impossible to be able to have both. Stop using excuses of age, immobility, inflexibility, and start working on getting it better. Life's demands don't change. Life's demands won't change. And honestly, it doesn't really care. So I remember that I walked into a CrossFit gym when I was about 33 years of age. I thought I was in good shape, but I could barely squat. I could barely do a push-up, a pull-up. And I thought I was good, but I didn't realize I was bad until I compared myself to other people who were going there. And I realized, yep, I'm in really bad shape. And it stimulated me to want to get better, not to get better than everybody else, but to become the best that I was created to be. Life's demands don't change. And honestly, it doesn't care. Dr. Nate, what do I do? Because I know people are going to reach out to me. I've let myself go. Where do I need to start? You may have let yourself go. I had let myself go too. But here's the wonderful thing. The body is very forgiving. If you're willing to put the work in, there's a principle, specific adaptation to imposed demand. And I adapted to that. And I become way better than I was when I first walked into the gym about 15 years ago. So where do you start? So if you are from, I want you to pay attention to this right now. If you are from the Yorkville area, here's what I want to do. If you look at the description on this video, you should see a website that I want you to click, and that will take you to scheduling with CrossFit Exemplify North. This is a gym I used to own. I no longer own it. I have no involvement with it other than I reached out to the owner, Connor, who's a wonderful person. And I said, Connor, can we extend this for the next week so that these people, if they want to, they can be able to come in? He said, yeah, sure. I would love to do that. So follow the link for your free week at CrossFit Exemplify, and quit saying that all of the excuses, because honestly, life doesn't care. And I want you to follow that, and I want you to sign up for that. And if you follow me and you're from the Chicagoland area, please go and register for that and do it right now, please. Now, I want to show you a picture, okay? Here is one of our athletes this was from last year when we owned the gym, about a year and a half ago. And here you see someone demonstrating a pretty doggone good front squat. So they're performing what's known as a front squat with a barbell. There's probably about 75 pounds of weight on there. And if you listen to that stupid article from a medical doctor, they would say, stop doing this. You're not supposed to do it over 50. This took a while for her to get to this point. But this woman is over 70 years of age. So she's over 70 years of age, and you would be amazed at how much she was able to get back. And you know who this is? This is my mother. I'm so proud of her for putting in the work and the effort to get better doing that. And look at her put in the work and not giving any kind of excuses. Was she scared? Absolutely. But she finally overcame that fear and started to work on getting better. And if she can do it, then I guarantee that you can do it. You just have to give it enough time and things like that. So how long does it take to get better? How long does it take in order to get that back? In some cases, it may take a whole entire year for a person to get back the change and the flexibility. There are some movements that took me a whole year to try to get back. But the cool thing is, because I put in the work and the effort and I stopped making excuses, I was finally able to do it. So I went over this last week from over almost 22 years ago, and it still rings true today when you talk about fitness and when you talk about nutrition. Eat meats and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, and no sugar. Keep intake levels that will support exercise but not body fat. Practice and train major lifts: deadlift, clean, squat, press, clean and jerk, and snatch. Similarly, master the basics of gymnastics by being able to do pull-ups, dips, rope climb, push-ups, sit-ups, presses to handstand, pirouettes, flips, splits, and holds. Run, bike, swim, row, etc. hard and fast. 5 or 6 days a week. Mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. Regularly learn and play new sports. And it doesn't say unless you're over 50, then just forget about it. Screw all of it. Because over 50, there's no hope. Your greatest life can be after 50 years of age. And I've seen it happen dozens and dozens of times because people refuse to give excuses, because they refuse to give up. And if you refuse to give up, then you can have a whole new life that's ready for you on the other side. You just have to be able to put in the work. Remember this, it's all about mechanics, then consistency, and then finally you add in the intensity. So guys, if you haven't yet, please make sure that you go and you register for our next in-person inflammation event. This is going to be on a Tuesday, not January 9th, but January 30th. You'll see the link to register on Eventbrite up at the top of our page. And then also, if you are from the contiguous 48 states, make sure you register for the webinar to work with me personally. I look forward to being able to see all of you, and also our mobility challenge that will be coming up probably in March. We're putting everything together as well. So I can't wait to see people for the mobility challenge, in which I will give you things to do every day. Take about 10 minutes, do it every single day. You'll be wowed at how your body starts to adapt to some of the things that I asked you to do. This will be free. The only thing that we ask you to do is please support our cause with the t-shirt as well. So you get something great, and you also get a lot of great content and a lot of great information from that. So guys, please make sure that you share this video. I hope you're inspired to change. And I hope if you're from the Yorkville area, please head on over to CrossFit Exemplify for your free week. I hope to see you there, even though I work out mostly by myself. So guys, the biggest thing that I tell people, when people ask me, why do you do it? Is I say, because I want to see people's life change. I want them to stop believing all of the BS that's out there as well. So hopefully you're inspired to do it. And I hope to see you very soon to a better life. So guys, I'll be back again next week. I hope you guys have an awesome night. Have an awesome rest of your week. Be well, be blessed. And as always, like I always say, remember who you are.